Welcome to the training on spiritual and holistic coaching today with 5 extraordinary tools for creating an extraordinary life. I'm Phillip Mountrose with my wonderful
We're
wife
here. We're
and
here. It's a little old
partner,
man and a little old lady.
Jane, and we'll have everyone, if you
What?
please
Can they see it? What? Can
uh,
they see us? No.
uh,
Hear us?
mute yourself as we're beginning here. I'll just ask everyone to mute all.
Good.
And Jane, you just need to speak. So uh, we're going into some tools that I think you will find very practical and helpful and maybe game changers as they've been for us. It's going to help you grow fully, be more alive, uh, have your potential met. Uh, and years ago, we burned out, Jane and I, which many of you might relate to in our jobs. I was an educator. Jane was an architect, and we started really searching very actively during that time for something to meet our spiritual goals and quests for a more enlightened spiritual life. And we found some amazing tools and actually invented and discovered some that we, for ourselves, that we teach that are very effective where there were some gaps in the learning. And a lot of it is about what we call the spiritual earthly balance. These tools that you're going to learn tonight are going to help balance your spiritual life so you can integrate it with your everyday mundane activities. And there oftentimes is a split there that creates a lot of confusion and dissatisfaction. I know it was for us. And over the years, we learned holistic hypnotherapy, NLP, holistic EFT tapping. We developed spiritual kinesiology, healing from the soul. And it took a lot of trial and error, a lot of persistence, a lot of ups and downs. We invested thousands and thousands of dollars in trainings and sometimes just got a little bit out of them. Many
Thanks.
days later and many thousands of dollars later. But those nuggets are what we're sharing and integrating now. Um, so we're glad that we did that. And what tends to hold people back is being trapped in old programming and habits that really aren't serving you. So with the tools that we're introducing today, 5 of them that we teach in our spiritual holistic coaching certification program that's coming up, when you learn them and you integrate them, and we're going to give you as much as we can in the very short time we have with you today, uh, your life opens up. It's going to open up your heart. It's going to open up your mind, and you'll have a lot more possibilities. Because when you have more possibilities, then you have a lot more manifestation. You have a lot more things that can go right in your life because you're in this more expansive place day by day, and you have a sense of how to integrate that when you make these tools your own. Um, Jane, did you want to add to that, or should we just jump into tool number 1?
Well, I could kind of segue into it.
Okay, why don't we segue?
I had one thought about what you were talking about with spiritual earthly balance, and that is it always has been important to us with the idea of spirituality being so important that along with that, bringing spirituality fully into form and living it. And I think that if you want to talk about spiritual earthly balance, to me, that's a really important part of it is how do we live from that place and exist within this reality, maybe being in it, but not of it, possibly in many cases. But one of the things that was really important to us going way, way, way back. Philip and I actually met in the 1970s, late 1970s, in a spiritual organization where the leader had all the truth and everybody else had to follow the leader, just like a bunch of chickies or something. So after a while, we were there for actually many years, and we learned some things that were so valuable. We have no regrets for having done it, but we came to a realization at some point where, well, if he has all the truth, why don't we have the truth? And so this is our first tool, is building on a strong foundation of your own truth. It actually, we finally left the organization and decided to go out on our own to find those missing pieces for ourselves. And I guess what the way that I would describe it now, which was not the first understanding that we had, but I think the really important point is we are creators because the creator resides within us. And what we did is when we left the spiritual organization, we went to all kinds of places, taking intuitive trainings and looking for our own truth. Like how do you access your own truth and know that you have it? And there would be things like, oh, well, you go into meditation and you visualize yourself receiving truth, and then it comes to you, just these really vague kinds of things. And you're kind of just wandering around like, how do I make sense of this? And of course, I was an architect, very left brain. And finally, we met a spiritual teachers and who were with us for many years after that, teaching us. And what they taught us is that the truth lies within your heart. That's where the creator resides in us. And in some spiritual traditions, they talk about a threefold flame in the heart. And that is that aspect of the creator. So if we understand that we are an integral aspect of the creator, it can change our perception of who we are. And if we understand that the state we want to be in to access our truth is that state of love and connectedness and oneness that you feel in your heart, then you know if you're there or not. Like, well, I'm kind of sensing this might be right for me. Well, are you in that place of loving kindness and oneness? If you are, then you can trust that it's coming from the right place. So from there, you can understand why you're here, where you're going. Not that everything is laid out like where you're going, it's all actually set. That's not the way it is. But I think it's very important to have that sense and understand that we have the truth within. It is so empowering, to empower ourselves to trust the truth for ourselves. And then, of course, we can receive from others. As this is what's happening today. And I think Philip and I, even as trainers and teachers and coaches, we feel that we learn as much as anyone else. Mm-hmm. And I think being a teacher is one of the greatest ways to learn something, because you have to be able to explain it very clearly. And as you do that, then more insights come through. So it's a wonderful experience. But whatever you do, it's important to build it on that foundation of your heart.
Right. And it's surprising that it's so rare to have soul development training. You'd think it would be commonplace, but nonetheless, it's not. We have different ways of connecting with the soul, which is a cornerstone to our spiritual growth and what we teach. And a lot of things just fall into place and make sense from that perspective. And that's how you spiritually evolve as well.
And when we first learned this, which was probably around 1989, the idea that the heart and love are important wasn't out there that much. And it really is much, much more now. And of course, the science is catching up with it through heart math and other scientific studies about how the value of connecting with the truth in your heart, what it does for you, and experiencing the love and allowing that to impact the health of your body. It is very nurturing and enlivening. It's supposed to produce more longevity. There are just all kinds of things about it that are so valuable, even for people who aren't spiritual. But for anyone, for yourself and for clients, students, everybody. And this is where we're going as a society too. You can see the divisiveness now in society, where the solution, we actually wrote a little book a couple years ago that we just send it out for free to anybody who will read it and send it out to other people to read, called The Solution, because love is the solution if you think about it. If we were in a loving world where everybody was motivated by love, we wouldn't have any of the problems we have right now. You know, the environment, wars, hatred, divisiveness, poverty. There's enough resources on the planet for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, from a higher dimension, it all makes sense. From this
Right.
dimension, there's a lot of
Yeah,
conflict,
bringing spirit into form.
outer conflict, and a lot of inner conflict, which is what these spiritual tools for balancing spiritual earthly are all about, which takes us to the second tool, which
Oh, and
answers.
by the way, just I
Yes,
forgot to mention, we do actually have a process that we use called soul centering for
right.
connecting with the love. And we're going to do a variation on that in a few minutes too. Another one that is related to that that is pretty amazing in itself.
Right. And we're going to have a demonstration at the end of this class about how these tools are actually used to give you
Mm-hmm.
a firsthand
Right,
experience of it.
right.
So the second tool answers the question you may have wondered sometimes in yourself. Um, ever heard the idea that, you know all the answers, they're all within, and you get, well, why am I, not figuring it out then if all the answers are within, what's wrong with me? Another way of saying that is you may know a lot or know people who know a lot, but nonetheless, they're really not making progress. So what they know isn't matching what they're doing in their life.
And experiencing.
So there's a gap there. And this
Mm-hmm.
tool, which this one you may have come across before, uh, it's been around a while, but it's very valuable to know it and actually understand what it really means. Is called the 4 stages of shifting your perspective and changing your mindset and action. Um, it came into awareness in 1970s. Noel Birch, who was actually a corporate trainer, uh, had these 4 stages of learning any new skill, sometimes called the 4 stages of competence or conscious competence learning model. And you may have heard this probably because this has been around. But though it's around, if you understand it at a deeper level, it can start to really make a big difference in how you're leading your life. So, what are these 4 stages? Well, it starts off with an unconscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence, the words kind of get turned around here. So that might be hoping to learn something. And it could be something like driving a car or riding a bike. If you've never done it before, you would, hey, I hope I can drive a car. You're at that.
Yeah, or how do I find my inner wisdom? I have no idea.
Yeah, you really don't even have any idea. Right. Or I'm going to use the analogy or our experience with learning holistic hypnotherapy, following up with our personal story after we left the Gurdjieff Ouspensky, the spiritual group where Jane and I met. uh, we realized that what was a huge gap in that system, in that learning model, was healing. So people would be very repressed and explosive and inhibited because they didn't have the healing tools. And that sent us realizing that part of enlightenment is healing. And so one of the first things we learned several decades ago after that training in the spiritual group was hypnotherapy. And at first we were just hoping, hey, maybe there must be some way to heal. I mean, how do you do this? And that was one of the things that caught our attention. And then the second stage in this 4 stage model is conscious incompetence. So that means if you want to drive a car, you have to start to learn the rules of the road and how to put on your signals and turn and do basic functions. And similarly
Yeah,
with,
so reading about it, say,
right, reading about
so
it,
you know how to do
hypnotherapy, beginning when
it.
took hypnotherapy training in Sacramento way back when in the 1990s. Um, we had to learn how to go into trance, how to relax, how to give hypnotic suggestions, which are very powerful, how to visualize what that means going in and out of trance, these basic tools, which at first, just like driving a car at first, are very awkward. You're very incompetent. You don't really have them. So the third stage in this 4 stage model is conscious uh, competence. Uh, sort of taking command of the situation. That means, yes, I've now learned how to drive. I've know the rules of the road. I've driven for a while. I can do it. It takes a little effort and awareness. I'm not completely confident yet, but I kind of get the picture. I can help people go into trance and visualize a better future or heal different things, which we were looking at these deep healing processes in the unconscious. But it took some effort and we weren't completely comfortable. So you had to kind of think about it, maybe check your notes or sometimes stumble, but you were making a lot of progress. And the final stage of learning anything, like everything we're teaching you now, going further into it, not just this one-time webinar, to go really deeply into it is what's called unconscious competence. So if I'm going to use hypnotherapy, or I'm going to drive a car, I don't have to think about it. I can easily put myself into a trance and go deep into my unconscious or help other people to heal and discover wonderful things and give powerful affirmations, hypnotic suggestions, and the like. So that takes us into a way of being. It takes the knowledge, just, hey, I'd like to become a healer, and actually practicing it, going deeper, practicing it into mastery. And what we teach in our spiritual coaching healing program is mastery. That's why it's not just a week or a month. It's a full. The next program on manifestation is 4 months, and that's one part of a 3-part program, a year program. Jane,
Mm-hmm.
did you want to add to the 4 stages model
Yeah,
there?
yeah, and I remember one I think really good explanation. Got to get the word out. Um, one time we were at a gathering. It was of spiritual people, and there was a fellow there, and he said, "Well, last month I went to a Tony Robbins seminar." And he said, it really doesn't work at all. I was there and I felt great, and I was really motivated and excited. And I went home, and a week later I was back where I am now, where I started. It was worthless. It was a complete waste of money. And you could say to a degree there's some hype involved in those kinds of things. Um, but really, to raise your vibration and to be in a place where you feel excited and great, it requires practice. It's not just about someone says, well, it's really great to feel good and you can do that. It's another thing, like Philip was saying, you have to practice it, or soul centering, creating that connection with the love in your heart, connecting with the truth. So it's like second nature to you. It requires practice, and that's what a lot of people miss. They'll read a book and then they'll say, well, I know that. They'll read another one. I read that before. Read another book. Reading books isn't going to be the total solution. It can teach you how to do something, but doing it and actually being the words, you could say, is another thing.
Right. And that takes us to tool number 3. Jane?
Yeah, and this one is related. And this is how to rein in your thoughts, which is sort of in a way what we're talking about. And it always fascinates me that we have so many thoughts going through our heads. Some estimates are that each of us has about 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And wanting to be more spiritual and more evolved, we think, well, gee, I really need to control these thoughts some better. This is not working out for me. But with so many of them, how can you possibly do that? You can't, like, thought by thought by thought. And what we realized with healing and working holistically with the body, emotions, mind, and spirit, is that groups of thoughts that we have that go together, they vibrate at a certain frequency, right? So say you are having a bunch of thoughts about how horrible things are and how this person isn't doing things right and this is happening and whatever it is. Like a lot of thoughts, you realize, well, gee, it seems like I'm really angry. And this is a partial key. So what you can do is you can find out what that state is if you evaluate what the emotion is, like we do with the emotional freedom techniques. You're covering a whole range of thoughts. It might be like your whole morning's worth of thoughts. Might all be about fear or anger or frustration or confusion, whatever it is. It's a vibration. Everything that we think, everything that we feel, it has a vibration. So the first thing then is to recognize what it is emotionally. And then if you want to elevate it, what you want to do is lift the vibration more toward love, appreciation, peacefulness, excitement, gratitude, rather than fear, anger, confusion, disappointment, whatever else might be going on. And that, so you could say, if you look at that kind of Tony Robbins example, that what you want to do is get yourself, you want to understand what it is emotionally and then raise it. And so the little process that we're going to do is something we teach in all of our programs, and we teach often and use a lot with clients as well. And it's called the Mud to Mountaintop. And we made this one up ourselves. Before I do that, Philip, did you want to add anything?
No, this is important. Keep going.
Okay. So just wherever you are now, we can all do this together. It only takes a couple minutes. Just if you're starting out in the mud means that you're in one of those lower vibrational states. Wherever you are, it's fine. Just start where you are. And close your eyes if you're in a place that's safe to do it. Focusing now on your breath. And of course, we have a choice as we breathe. What kind of energy do we want to bring into our awareness? So we can just ask all the beings of light who are surrounding us in the higher realms to bless us with love. It could, in whatever it is you most want, happiness, joy, freedom, just breathing in all that love and light and whatever with every breath. And as you exhale, releasing anything that you don't need now, anything that is not that. And with your breath, as you inhale, you can imagine sending it to different places in your body. Like if you're focusing on love, maybe a place that isn't loved or isn't well. Or a place where the mind, in the brain, actually, the brain where thoughts can go out of control, just sending love into the brain and flow, just allowing the thoughts to flow through. And maybe even experience a little more peace in your mind. And then just breathing in lighter, even lighter energy now. So you can imagine yourself starting to float, will drift up beautifully to a mystical mountaintop way high up. And as we go higher, we go further and further from the mass consciousness thought forms, you could say, from all of the vibration of limitation that we're in most of the time, because that's what's vibrating around us most of the time. Unless we're really, really lucky being in the country or whatever. But we're going to rise out of it to this beautiful, mystical mountaintop with a panoramic view of the whole world around us. A 360-degree view. And the world is so beautiful when we see it from that broad, expansive view. And the air is so clear, might be a nice, beautiful breeze on you. And with the light of the sun, the light of source just shining down perfectly on you, on all of us. Just notice how you feel now. Maybe you feel lighter, maybe you feel brighter. Focus now on that love in your heart. And imagining rising up does raise your vibration. It's easier to move into a higher vibrational state like peace, love, joy, gratitude, all of those things. And if you imagine an expansive view, that also expands your mind. And I think this is one of the reasons why people love to look at the ocean and sunset or sunrise over the ocean. And like being on a mountaintop, being in a higher place. I think that's a metaphor, kind of an archetypal metaphor that we as humans understand also, that idea of being in that elevated place, having reached the pinnacle and breathing that beautiful fresh air, feeling that light, the perfect light from source shining down on us. So from here, you probably would notice that you're having different thoughts than you have maybe at other times. And this is why we find it so valuable with clients too, just bringing them up to the mountaintop, because you're elevating your perspective. And of course, you're closer if you are a person who believes in angels and guides and all of those things. You're closer, you can feel their presence more. Philip, did you want to share anything about this experience of being on the mountaintop?
Well, it's very peaceful and blissful right now, and a lot of the little concerns I had prior to this have dissolved nicely.
Mm-hmm. Right. And this is something all of us can do. It's a very easy thing to do. And the more you do it, it's that idea again, practicing, the better it
Mm-hmm.
gets, because you're retraining yourself. You're programming yourself to go to this place where you're going to feel better. You're going to feel more love, more joy, more gratitude, more appreciation for the beauty of this earth that we're on. And then you can intend to bring that back with you. You might relate it to a color or a feeling or a sound. And just imagine then drifting back down to where you started and bringing back that state. Putting your feet on the ground, grounding yourself to the beautiful earth that we're on again, sending
Mm-hmm.
love to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I do that, I receive love back. And then breathing in more active energy, going back to your normal waking state. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Anyone want to share, by the way? Anyone of the group want to share their experience of going to the mountaintop, what that was like for them? Just go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
I will.
Okay, Bonita.
It's like my brain quieted down, which doesn't happen very often. It was very nice not to have all of the
Mm-hmm.
chatter.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a relief.
It's sometimes called the quiet ego, quieting your ego. So opening up to the greater reality.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for Bonita. Anyone else want to share just the experience they had briefly, what it was like for them? You can just unmute yourself. Feel free to share. It's always good to hear from you. And okay.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Okay, that's fine. We are going to go on to the next tool. It's another tool that will help you evaluate where you are in the journey. So that's why we call it a spiritual coaching and healing tool. Something we developed. We call it the spectrum of success here. And I'll go over the parts of it. So say you have something you want to accomplish in better health, better career, relationships, finances, whatever. And there's a series which are not exactly linear, but it could be, which can give you feedback of where you are in the process to help you evaluate. And I'll use an example of one of our students. Marion years ago took our program, our spiritual coaching and healing program. In that time, we were doing it in a physical location in an office. And even though I remember maybe there'd be 8 or 9 people, it'd be a small class, and she'd be there. And if she'd have to talk, her voice would be trembling. You'd think this would be in front of an auditorium of people. She was very shy, in other words. But she was yet she was very determined to learn hypnotherapy and coaching and healing and the things we were teaching. So she was persistent. And it started off with, a disbelief whether she could do it. She had a lot of, doubt and confusion. And that led to a certain doubt, like, can I really do this? And you may have that in what you're doing. Is it possible for me to become a healer or a spiritual coach or whatever, or improve this relationship? And then at a certain point, it shifts into a hopefulness, a hope that, just as we talked, those 4 stages of competency, you start to learn some skills, you get some expertise.
Go to the mountaintop.
You go to the mountaintop, you start to know what you're doing, and then you takes you more into faith and belief in a grounded way, not a just throwing it out and just hoping anything. With a spiritual earthly balance, remember that polarity, because you now are understanding, if you really start to study these tools and actually practice them and go deeper into them, you have a knowingness. Yes, you know that, hey, I do want to be a spiritual coach and healer or whatever. I do feel that this relationship is part of my journey, or something about improving your health, whatever it is. And at a certain point, it shifts into a state of being, that unconscious competence. That's just who you are. You are and Marion took our training, took further trainings, and she, decades later now, since she took our program, she is a full-time spiritual healer and Reiki master and has regular classes. That's what she does. She retired from her corporate job, which she was burnt out at the time. So that was a motivation, and she went through those spectrum of success. So you kind of have a sense with these tools of how to gauge where you are. Jane, did you want to add to that?
Well, one thing I wanted to say, if you look at it, of course, we're talking about a vibrational shift. A lot of people get stuck in confusion. Like, I'll never be able to make this work. This is so confusing. Well, one positive thing about confusion, people consider that to be a negative thing. Like, I can't stand this anymore. It's too confusing. The positive side of confusion is that it means that you're growing. Without confusion, you wouldn't grow, because it means you already know everything. Mm-hmm. So when you take that as a positive sign and then ask for, well, okay, so if I'm in the state of confusion, then how do I get out of it? Mm-hmm. The solution generally is having a strategy. Mm-hmm. And of course, what we're talking about here is having strategies, which a lot of what we do with coaching is about having really well-defined strategies so that you understand how to get from A to B. And that kind of what we're talking about here with this different level of states of being, moving towards a place where you're completely comfortable with this whole new reality that maybe you're moving into. If you know, well, I'm kind of, I was in disbelief, but now I'm still doubtful, but I'm kind of getting hopeful. You're making progress. Mm-hmm. You're going in the right direction. And I think that's the valuable thing about understanding this. And then also looking at it in relation to belief. Mm-hmm. Because so many things are about building belief. And of course, a lot of that comes from here, in your heart.
And the healing too is part of it.
And experience too.
Another way of saying that, research has shown, extensive research, for those who like research, that people generally want to grow. So there's the security needs, the lower basic needs, and the growth needs, the more self-actualization, self-transcendence needs, the abundant higher needs. So we have them both. And people generally, if they can get enough of their security needs met, they start to go toward what we're talking about here, the spiritual coaching and healing tools, the self-actualization, the self-transcendence for more accelerated spiritual growth. Now, here's the trick to all this. What gets in the way of that spectrum we talked about? Well, there's a lot of disbelief. There's a lot of fear and doubt and confusion at the earlier stages. And here's the big and, that is actually the signal to you that this is an opportunity to grow. So the very blocks are the things that are the signals, like this is what I am here to work on. And you need the right tools and the support and training to do that, of course, but it's pointing to you. It's not like, oh no, this is coming up and these inner conflicts, you reject them or project them outward or blame your circumstances or become a victim, which we all do at times. So you clear the way for more spiritual growth and getting your needs met, including security and safety and such, and belonging.
Right.
Jane,
Yeah.
anything else, or on to tool number 5, the 5th, before we do a demonstration and a wrap up?
Well, I'm ready to move on to number 5. And
Let's do that.
actually, it seems like all of these things merge into different ways to look at the picture. The hopefulness in it is that if you understand kind of what the potential is and how to get there, then you're on your way, right? So that's what this last one is about, which is about solving problems in a productive way, because in many cases, or often, I think Philip mentioned that we have taken a lot of different trainings, and a lot of them really never helped us that much. And many trainings we found offered pretty superficial solutions. Like I was talking about, how to find your own truth. Well, you kind of, you just go and you relax, and then the truth, it'll come to you, and there you are, and you can live your truth. Well, it's not clear enough. So, and this is something that came from another source, and I'm not sure exactly what the source is, so I can't tell you what it is. But the idea is finding the ultimate solution to a problem. It can be a small problem, it can be a big problem, it can be any kind of problem. Or challenge is another good word. I like to use the word challenge. Whenever we have problems, when we confront the unknown or something unexpected happens, we're being challenged to find a new way. So the idea with the ultimate solution is that there are 3 elements to it. And the first element is, what is the primary cause of the problem? Because you might think, well, I have this problem and this is happening and that's happening. Well, what's the main thing? Like if you get to the bottom line, what is the problem? And so I like to use an example from a person. We could call the person Shirley. Could be a man or a woman, anyone. And so many of us, we want more prosperity, right? A lot of people would like to have tremendous wealth. And so the problem is not having wealth. I want to be wealthy. And in this example with Cheryl, we'll say the real problem is that just asking about it, that he feels trapped in a life that isn't fulfilling. So he's in this life that isn't fulfilling, and he wants to be wealthy. What is really the primary cause of the problem that would create a potential for the fastest and easiest solution? So what would be the fastest, easiest, and most effective and complete solution? And it's interesting when you think of, I think probably most everybody would love to have more wealth. What is it that we really want? It's not a thing as much as a state, right? What we want maybe is more security, maybe more freedom, more things. It could be. talking to people, and I think looking into the new age, the age of Aquarius, the theme of the age of Aquarius actually is freedom. And if you ask people what having more wealth would give them, generally they'll say freedom. So it's like, okay, so the most effective solution would probably be to seek freedom, because you can start to experience more freedom now. A lot of times it with some healing, you can start feeling freer with different strategies. You can start feeling freer now. You can kind of break through those limitations of, well, I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to do that and that. Mm-hmm. And I really feel trapped. Well, do you really have to do all those things? Mm-hmm. Or is it because you have to please everybody that you have to do all those things? You know, just looking at your life in a new way from how can I be more free? And with healing and strategies, you can come up with some ideas for sure. So that takes us to the third part. How do I get from that root cause to the ultimate solution, which is the real goal? And I already suggested, well, you could maybe do some healing. You could maybe strategize and change some of your habits. Maybe you need to talk to people who have expectations of you that are unreasonable. Maybe you can't say no and you just need to learn to take control of your life. I guess for all of us, taking control of our lives is generally a challenge because we come from a place where certain expectations were made of us and certain beliefs about who we were put upon us. So if you understand, you know, that you're seeking the ultimate solution, not just putting a Band-Aid on it. You know, like, well, go on vacation. You'll feel better when you get back, kind of a Band-Aid. Changing your life, really, from understanding what the real cause of the problem is and then how you can get from the cause to the solution.
Mm-hmm. And to go back to the example I gave with Marion, our student, the cause of the problem, remember, she couldn't speak up even in a small group, is she just had a of excessive shyness, a fear of expressing herself and being punished or humiliated, rejected, like a lot of us do. And the fastest, most effective, easiest way to deal with that was to be in a group that could support her and help train her and give her strategies. And how could she do that? Well, just to get a conscious unconscious unconscious competence. Just learn the skills, practice them so they become your own. And now she's, as I said, now she's a leader. She's on her own and a very powerful teacher for the person who was afraid to say just a couple words in front of 8 people, you know.
Right. And just going back to the wealth example again, also wealth, people might think that wealth is the solution, but there are a lot of people who are wealthy who are not happy, who don't feel free, who don't feel like they're fulfilled. And I guess that's another thing. Fulfillment is another thing. People, I don't know how many people want more money because they feel they'd be fulfilled, but fulfillment is also certainly a part of creating a life, an extraordinary life, is feeling like, wow, I'm doing what I'm here to do. And this is the greatest thing ever. I can't wait to get up in the morning. I remember when I was an architect, that's one of the things. I just didn't want to get up in the morning. And when I started doing the Soul Center and really just connecting with that love in my heart, I started getting up 15 minutes earlier to do it every morning before I went to work. Within a week, I just couldn't wait to get up in the morning. And that was what, more than 30 years ago. And I'm still the same way. I get up early. I love my life.
Yeah, and if you haven't done so, you too can create a life you love. And the tools that we're sharing here are some great ways of doing it and going further, as we'll explain. Let me, before we do a powerful demonstration here of how this works, which the 5 tools, building on a strong foundation, operating from your soul's perspective, the 4 stages from that unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence, reining in your thoughts, raising your vibration. We did the soul to the mud, the mountaintop approach, one of our soul centering. We have other ones connecting. Understanding that spectrum of success from disbelief to being that we illustrated, and then that ultimate solution. What is it you really want? And that takes us to a demonstration of one of our processes that we developed, a holistic EFT emotional freedom technique tapping. We call it the Fear Monster Reframe. Kind of a lighthearted title. It's kind of a lighthearted process for something that can be personally challenging to us. And Bonita, who is actually one of our graduates, is here, and she's going to do. She graciously volunteered to have something to transform here, reframe, and that's part of the spiritual coaching healing tools. Doing these kind of powerful processes and being able to do them and use them on yourself with other people too. Bonita, thanks for being here. You want to share what you're this? She told me ahead and share a little bit about what you want to transform here.
Yeah, I have a fear. I have had a fear for since about the early 80s. Some of it you probably weren't even born then. Of losing my husband. It started, he was in the army, the hostages were in Iran, they were in a rapid deployment force, they were going to go. They were sure they were going to go, and I was a young bride and scared to death. I would go to work and cry, and they'd say, go home. And I go, if I go home, I'm just going to cry. So I'm just going to stay here. And I see that it's followed me through all of these years, and it can't help but cloud everything in my life. Not just, the fear of losing my husband, but there's that fear that's this current of it running my life. And we need to change that.
Yeah, thanks for volunteering. And I know a lot of people, myself included, can relate to what you're saying, that kind of fear of losing people that you love. So this would be a good one to transform. And the way the process starts is you imagine that fear of losing your husband, right?
Right.
Imagine if that were a monster in some ways. It could almost be like a cartoon monster, an image, and usually one will just come to mind. And that image is Bonita.
It's like this fills my room, this huge monster that fills my room. Um,
What's that monster like?
he's not really scary,
It's already shifting.
but he's like overpowering.
Okay.
Um,
The energy is overpowering. Is that what you mean?
yeah, I mean, it's so big.
Because of its
It's
bigness.
like I can't see around him.
Uh-huh. He's just taking
Just,
a lot of space there.
yes, yes.
Any other image besides the power energy? I mean, is there any visual or color or shape or anything you want to
Yeah,
add?
he's yellow, hairy,
Mm-hmm.
has horns.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, he says they're ears. They're
Okay.
not horns.
Kind of horny, pointed ears.
Yep. And he likes to hold my hands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
he's very insidious, like he sneaks in.
Suddenly he's there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, that was a good description, a good process that you're able, that's a part one, being able to identify and using the right process and the right tools, like we said, will help you do that. So the second part is to uh, do EFT tapping, and we have a holistic version, the emotion freedom techniques on certain pressure points, which many of you may know that, and using imagery we like to do because that makes it often even more powerful. And to get the right affirmation, we can have a feeling just to measure that, the intensity of that. So the feeling of losing your husband, are you just thinking in general or a specific moment of losing your husband, by the way?
Well, I'll go back to that initial event. That's definitely a 10.
The event in the 80s when he was in the military?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so and that was a fear, is that correct?
Correct.
10. Okay, so we have that. So now we start to do some EFT tapping with a targeted specific affirmation based on what Bonita said. And I'll just make sure this is right. So something like, even though, and we like to say, part of me has this fear. We'll just say has this fear. We've identified it.
Mhm.
I can still love and accept myself and
That's fine.
let my reality shift.
Mhm.
Do you like that? Okay. So we tap the side of the hand, the heel, or some people like to do the sore spot, the old EFT lymph node, or
And people
most
might
people.
want to tap along too,
Yeah, you can
because
tap along.
you get benefits even if
Yeah,
you
you
don't
might.
have any fear.
Everyone's got
It runs
fears.
energy.
Yeah, everyone's got some fears. So, anyways, so even though part of me feels this fear, I love and accept myself, and I'm letting my reality shift now. So, okay, you got that, Bonita?
Even though part of me feels this fear, I can love and accept myself, and I know my reality can shift now.
Good. And one more time.
Even though part of me feels this fear, I can love and accept myself, and I know my reality can shift now.
Okay, so we're going to tap the 7 key pressure EFT acupressure points that connect to the circuits to balance the system on this issue. So we're tapping the top of the head. Just say something like this issue. It's a reminder phrase.
This issue,
You can touch it too, tap or touch 5 or 7 times, tap and then lightly. And then the eyebrow next to the bridge of the nose on
this
either or
issue,
both sides, this issue.
this issue,
And the side of the eye on both sides. We like to do both sides, this issue.
this issue,
Under the eye, this issue.
this issue,
Under the nose, another key pressure point, this issue.
issue,
The chin, this issue.
this issue,
The collarbone, the ridge of the bone, the collar underneath them. Some of these points are sensitive, tapping or touching this issue.
this issue,
Good. And then under the arms, kind of like embracing yourself, hugging yourself, giving you a hug, this issue.
this issue,
And the final point that we add is we call the reset process, balancing the head, tapping across the head for the left and right brain balance.
Nice pat on the head.
Yeah. Letting your reality shift. Good, like good girl. Good girl. Breathing in. Good. And then tapping across the heart, letting your reality shift in the right way for you. Breathing. And that was one round of EFT with that imagery, the fear monster reframe imagery. Okay, good. So we go back and we reassess, we reevaluate where Bonita is and see what happened. So Bonita, going back to the image and what's going on with the image now?
He's become a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem quite so scary.
Mm-hmm.
He's still smiling.
Oh,
It feels so much better.
mm-hmm. So we assess what's it like emotionally now? What's the emotional reading going on for you?
I'd say the fear's gone down to a 4.
Okay. So that was from 10 to 4 on that issue, that original issue. So that's 60% down. So should we just do another round rather quickly? So just
Sure.
we'll say remaining issue.
Okay, remaining issue,
Okay. And this only takes a minute or so. Remaining issue, we're reviewing
issue,
the tapping or touching points, remaining issue,
remaining issue,
balancing the energy, remaining issue.
remaining issue,
Under the nose, the conception vessel point, remaining issue.
issue,
The chin, the middle chin, this issue.
this issue, remaining issue,
Yeah, collarbone,
oops,
this issue.
this
Left
issue,
under the arm, this issue.
this issue,
And one more reset, balancing the left and right brain, tapping yourself lightly, breathing. Good. And tapping the heart to integrate in your heart, letting your reality shift again.
he just ran out the door.
That sounds like a good good resolution. So
Yeah.
what's left now? Now that he's gone?
Really, it's hope.
Hope.
It's hope to, I mean, fear has run my life for so long that anything is possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hope for
Whatever it is I want,
mm-hmm.
whatever it is I want to manifest. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
changes everything when you're not
Yeah.
carrying fear every day.
Yeah, it's like you have
Yeah.
this albatross, this heavy weight holding you down, just looking, watching around the corner, kind of paranoid, hyper vigilant, wondering, when the shoe is going to drop, all those kind of metaphors running our life.
That's exactly what somebody told me once. They said, you have the perfect life. Just wait till the other shoe drops. And I've been
Right.
carrying that.
Yeah, pinch yourself. It's
Thanks so much.
Right.
it's not
And
going
I
to
know she
last.
didn't mean it that way, but
Yeah,
somehow I absorbed that.
you internalized it. Right.
I did.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for sharing that. That was a powerful example.
Like they ran out.
Yeah, and they often shrink the monsters when we do those things. So again, if you learn these kind of processes, make them your own. You can go to the mountaintop, combine it with these things. There's a lot of mixing and matching. It's pretty remarkable what you can experience.
Yeah, I
Before we,
think that I love the fear monster reframe because it typically they'll start out big, like we're afraid of things because they're bigger than us.
Mhm.
And then so as the intensity goes down, the monster becomes smaller. And it's just a very good kind of illustration as you're doing a process for the practitioner and the client to be able to say, well, look, he's smaller now. He's not quite so scary anymore.
Mhm.
And then he runs out the door.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
Or sometimes it's like they get so small, like a little mouse, and
yeah,
and they're gone.
it's kind of like a Ghostbusters movie. Yeah, right. Okay. Busted a ghost. Okay.
So there's something, I think it's a very powerful process, and it's also just by its nature lighthearted, because how did you feel when you saw him, the monster?
I felt like it was like a cartoon monster.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you start to see, well, this isn't real. It isn't real, but it's still big, But then I just think it's a really wonderful way to deal with fear.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
with imagery, there's that idea, picture's worth 1,000 words, which is true if you can attach an image to it. Because I would think, Bonita, you would remember this process more with that image than you would have just from tapping.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We use imagery a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's powerful.
Yeah, thanks, Bonita, for doing that. We shared 5 tools. We want to just touch on a few others that we teach in our spiritual coaching and healing program that's coming up February 13th now. Give you kind of a sense of some other things we explore.
Yeah, there are a lot of extraordinary tools like that. As we mentioned right at the beginning, our whole focus is being able to bring spirit into form. And I think, well, if you look from also at that range that Philip had from being from disbelief to just being in sync with really what you want, all of these different ways of understanding where you are um I can't think of the word. I guess
They're grounding, that's one
they're
thing.
yeah, they're grounding, but I feel I'm not coming up with the word. It's like it's encouraging. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I know I didn't believe it last week. This week I'm doubtful, but I'm making progress. You can kind of get progression from it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have other ones there, and this is another thing we don't have time really to tell you about it right now, but this is one of the things we learned in that spiritual organization way back that I haven't seen it anywhere else, but it's why life doesn't move in a straight line and why people so easily become deviated from the path that is most fruitful for them. And it is because well, if you're doing something new, it often starts with a honeymoon period, right? And then when the honeymoon period ends, generally there is like, well, maybe, maybe this isn't working out. And I'm not just talking about marriage, but just, we start something with great enthusiasm, and then all the glitter and luster or whatever wanes, and we're left with reality, kind of like, ooh, now I have to do a little work or something. People go from one thing to the next for their whole lives, chasing the next shiny object. That's a way it's described. So we talk a lot about that, about how important it is to understand what's happening at those times and how to stay on track. That's one thing. We have a lot of checklists for things too, where you can check off what might be occurring when it's like, I don't know what's happening. And we have checklists, like one is commitment. A lot of times people start things and it's kind of like, well, this sounds great, I'm not sure, and never really commit to anything.
My friend told me it's not a good idea, so I guess I'm not going to do it.
Right.
I heard that one recently.
Right. And actually, when I was talking with someone about this earlier today, this one, why toughing it out doesn't work. It's like, feel the fear and do it anyway. For Bonita, it's been since the 1980s. She keeps going on, but the fear is still there, right? And I think there's probably a minority of people who that kind of, they're real action types, feel the fear and do it anyhow. I'm going to tough it through, and they can actually do it. But there is an easier way, like clearing, using a clearing technique. And the goal then is to be, rather than having to be in a place where you're loaded down with fears and frustrations and anger and confusion and all of these different things, clearing them out effectively, so that then all that's left is the inspiration to take action, where it's like the greatest thing I could possibly do. And that's one of the things that we teach in our manifestation program, and other places too. For those, I know some of you are in the spiritual guide program. We're going to be talking about that there in that program too, the creation process. Like, how do you get to that place of taking inspired action, rather than like, I'd love to write a book, but I just can't make myself sit down and do it. I know that it's meaningful to me, but why is it that I'm not doing it?
Right.
Well, if you clear that, I worked with a client on that one time, and I'll never forget it, because she'd been procrastinating for months and she really wanted to write a book. And so we did all of the healing processes and everything. And at the end of the session, it was later. We're on the West Coast, she was on the East Coast, so it was evening. It's probably 9 o'clock at night or something by the time we finished our session. And she just couldn't wait to start writing. And that's where you want to be, in that place, like all the energy is there and there's nothing that's standing in the way, or not as much. I mean, for us to say, well, I'm never going to have another blockage, that's an illusion too. But she was so inspired, she couldn't wait to write. And she's done many, many amazing things since then. Our Heart of Success roadmap, we have a step-by-step guide for realizing your dreams, where teaching, that's another area we've taken a lot of programs and courses on how to manifest things. And it's like another one, again, like, oh, it's kind of over here and then you're over there, and you have to be sure to think about this other thing. And but how do I put it together? How do I know that I'm in the right place? And what is my next step? Those are the kinds of things that we really enjoy focusing on. And the clarity, that being able to live from a place of clarity is really a blessing. Not having to deal with, well, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right next step? And I don't know how this actually works, so how can I possibly even consider this, or whatever it is. Just having those skills.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so that's sort of a lead into our upcoming program, which some of you might be interested in. It's something we've taught for well over 20 years now. We keep developing this holistic spiritual coach healing program, which is
I think that
very,
we're on our 30th year now. So
yeah, we just keep
from
going.
we started with hypnotherapy and it's kind of broadened.
NLP, holistic EFT, soul
Right.
centering, and it keeps going deeper and deeper. And it is for mastery. It's for people who really want to learn the kind of tools that we've been sharing or introducing today and make them their own and help themselves first and, of course, others. And we use the holistic hypnotherapy, the NLP, EFT, spiritual kinesiology, healing from the soul, like going to the mountaintop that we demonstrated. And it is for people who want profound spiritual growth and accelerated evolution. And some people want to either start a career, enhance their career with the tools that they're going to be learning as well. And people come from all walks of life, which is interesting. There are people who are business people, realtors, lawyers, there's coaches and healers, and people want to go deeper into their trainings, extended. There are homemakers, teachers, educators, artists, and holistic minded people who want a better life, a more fulfilling life, a more spiritual life, and the how do you do that? And I wanted to go back. I know Bonita, who took our training, she had taken some other trainings. If you'd care to share on that, just as an insight, as an experience of taking it.
Yeah, I took 2 life coaching programs over the last 15 years. I also took eating psychology coaching, but I really didn't like coaching. It's missing something. Discussion's great, but I didn't feel like it really changed much. And then I found this program through a series of synchronicities, like probably most of you, how you arrived here. And I started learning all these tools to help shift the energy, which was, to me, it was just huge that there's a way to actually change those limiting beliefs and that fear that's running our lives. And, we don't even know what's there. And then we have all these amazing checklists where we can dose or muscle test to find out where we need to work for that person at that specific time. And so that was just amazing that, you don't know what you don't know. How do you know where to look for something that's, buried in somebody's unconscious? And now we have a way to find what we can pull that bottom card from a house of cards and we can watch the whole thing come down and change their lives and bring them back to life and make them excited and find their way forward, because that's what we all want to do. We want to have these fulfilling lives, and you don't even know where to start. So just give me a call.
Yeah, the cards are sort of the illusions and all the restrictive emotions that we've encountered from the past programming and conditioning, like we said, that we're uh, here to learn about and grow from. And that it actually becomes the core material to grow from, not to run away from like we have been. And, what do I do with this stuff? Well, when you're trained and you go through those stages of competence, you become ultimately unconsciously competent to deal with this stuff. It's a very different way to live your life, empowering. And the program, which begins February 13th now, the Holistic Coaching Healing, the certification program, uh, it's very affordable. They're payment plans, and we can talk with you a way to make that work for you if you're interested and see if it's the right program. And you go to tinyurl.com/HOL coach. That's the description page, or call us here at Awakenings Institute, 805-934-1238, and we can discuss more about it. But you will learn a lot very practically, and there's a way to work with wonderful people in the program that it's hard to find. And you need those like-minded people. That's essential for your journey, to have a support system and learn the right tools and knowledge. Jane, did you want to add to that?
Just if it's for you, just I as always with everything, follow your heart. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I that's what I uh do.
So it's been great being with you, sharing these 5 extraordinary spiritual coaching healing tools. And hopefully we'll be connecting with you one way or the other. Some of you I know in the holistic spiritual coaching healing program or elsewhere, other programs or on our newsletter. So everyone, we enjoyed sharing with you. We look forward to your continuing journey of success, transformation, and spiritual growth. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.